obviously when you're writing when you have multiple opinions, you get responses that say, I don't care for this or I don't like that. And we've had, I mean, recently we've had a lot of controversy over one of our lesbian writers and the transgender issue. And, you know, my point of view is that's, you know, it's important to have her voice, but also to have other people's voices too. So, you know, I would be more than willing to publish responses. We do publish responses to people if people write in, or we ask them to write in if they email us and express concern. And if they do respond, you know, we will publish the response. I think the issues that are most troubling in terms of making people uncomfortable are the issues that relate to sex, and by that I mean if someone's arrested for public sex or something like that, or underage sex. Those are the issues that get people really nervous. I still think it's important to cover them, and cover them in a way that is not just parroting what the mainstream thinks, because we do bring we should bring, I think, a different perspective on a lot of this stuff, just because of being gay in this country or in this culture. And certainly I remember when, you know, it was completely taboo to be gay, and most people, if they came out, what that meant was you came out to friends. You didn't come out to your family. You didn't come out to your employer. You didn't come out publicly. And so, you know, I'm certainly keenly aware of what can happen when there's strong, very strong oppression. And I think a lot of people are still experiencing, certainly transgender people, you know, experience it a whole lot. But I also think, you know, feminine people do, feminine men, I mean. It's just, there's a lot of reasons to be suspicious of authority, and I think it's important for us to publish articles that challenge the sort of the orthodoxy of the moment.
When we started out, nobody had any idea how we would be perceived. Because, I mean, certainly a lot of people had personal horror stories, and there were famous incidents like the Harvey Milk. A number of people started out at the paper using pseudonyms, as did I. For about 3 issues, I'm JMC. And then somebody who was typesetting the contributors box didn't know that that's what they were supposed to write in, and just put Jeff McRae in there. And the sky did not fall. No, in fact, I'm sure nobody noticed outside of a few people who read the contributors box to a newspaper. But gradually it became clear that Baltimore was not a very hostile place. One of the first ways in which I was publicly gay was we used to have a Maryland state tax exemption card, because we were a nonprofit organization. And so we would go to AdCom to buy supplies for the newspaper and then say, don't charge us any taxes because I've got a card. And they would look at it and say, Gay Community Center of Baltimore. And then they'd look at me. And that was pretty scary the first couple of times that I did it. And then I realized that, you know, okay, we don't charge sales tax. That's all. Many people were concerned when they bought the center that it would be torched or vandalized or whatever. And aside from a couple of times when people spray painted, which they do on buildings everywhere, I don't think there has been much threat. So I think that for one reason or another, the city of Baltimore is a pretty tolerant place and has been all along. It took us a few years to have confidence in that, but that was very lucky. I don't know how we would have responded had things been more hostile.
That's a very good question. Yes, I did hear. I was very much involved, though. I followed that story very intently when it happened. It was an extremely sad story. I didn't know much of Harvey Milk prior to his assassination. I, of course, saw the movie Milk, but even before then I learned about what he had accomplished and what he was trying to do in San Francisco. The assassination was, of course, a major tragedy. Even more so was his assassin basically got off on a very lame excuse, and he wasn't given the proper justice that should have been. It was clearly a premeditated crime, and basically got off on the old Twinkie defense. You may have heard about that. That he said he was eating a lot of Twinkies and it affected his mind, and he went into this. It was almost like a temporary insanity, and for some reason this was our judicial system bought into that, and he didn't spend much time in prison. I don't remember the exact. His name was Dan White. I don't remember the exact time frame he did spend, but it was not nearly enough. Did it make us afraid of what could happen? Absolutely. We were still, and still are, considered enemies of a lot of people who just don't understand us yet. And ignorance of us causes this fear and hatred. That's hence the term homophobia. And I always felt, even to this day, you cannot comfortably walk down the street with your partner hand in hand, and even in a city that has protections on discrimination, it doesn't mean somebody's going to come out of the doorway and club you over the head with a bat. You don't know what's going to happen. There is still a shrinking number, but still intense number of people who would want to do harm to us. They just do not accept it, and you can see it in even today in the blogs, in commentary, in various news feeds that come out and people comment on LGBT issues. You can see that venom, because they can do this anonymously without any repercussions. They hide behind a screen name, a handle, totally anonymous, and spew this hatred out, and you know it's there. And it does, and people should still always be aware of their surroundings and not act like everything is one. We can get marriage equality passed this November by having it upheld through a referendum. It's up in the air. We don't know if that's going to happen or not, but we can still have that. And when people may let their guard down and think, well, this is a blessing. We're the first state to have this passed in a voter referendum, and everything is okay now. We're all set. Our world can move on. It's probably far from the truth, because you still have the people who would resent it, and may take action. There would be a backlash. It could be physical. It could not. It may not be, but it's there. So I will never ever feel comfortable that no matter what we achieve legislatively or in any other format, that we will feel that we are completely arrived yet. And because there is just too much hatred out there, even if it's a shrinking number of people, it's still there, and it's still intense. Well, I haven't really overcome the fear. It's not dominating my mindset. It's still there, and it's just a matter of awareness. Just be watchful where you walk, what you say, what you do. I'm not an openly flamboyant type person that calls attention to my sexuality. I grew up in an era where he basically was either closeted or very restricted and restrained. As I said earlier, I came out in the military, so that was obviously done in a very closeted way. So my whole bringing up, my whole experience being gay has always been characterized by carefulness, just being aware of things and not being paranoid about it, but just being more alert that things can happen. I think a newer generation feels they're coming into a whole different set of circumstances. But even now, even with that situation, where it is true, you have more resources, more support systems in place, more understanding, more acceptance by family, by your peers even, you still have the problem of bullying in schools that's not changing, that has not changed measurably, that I'm aware of. I mean, maybe it has to some extent, but not. It's still there. It's still prevalent. So I don't think anybody can really be comfortable yet. I don't think it might take a generation or two to finally get past this fear. And like I said, my background has always been sort of cautious and restrained, but even today's generation of kids, they're facing problems, not just from their peers at school, but also family members. Not all their family members or parents particularly are accepting. And a lot of kids have become homeless as a result of it. We know that in Baltimore. A lot of families have thrown their kids out on the street because of their sexuality, even though it puts them in far more danger being homeless, being on the street, fending for themselves, can't do their work in school properly if they go to school anymore. And it's unhealthy because of the potential of meeting people that aren't necessarily in good shape. So I don't think there's been that much a diminishment of this problem. I think it's just sort of pushed back, but it's there in my view.
Oh, everybody was really supportive of those marches. There was some controversy about whether to have a march or not in, I forget which year it was. Was it the Millennium March? Maybe it was 2000. I don't know. But I remember that our papers always reported those issues, and I think I may be misremembering, but I think the papers certainly supported the earlier marches for sure, and I think we probably supported all of them. It made sense to present the various issues, and these marches all had calls where there were demands made, and those often were controversial too, and we reported on them, I'm sure. I haven't gone back and looked, but I'd be surprised if we didn't.
We had a cover issue, a photograph of the march on one of our early covers. A few of the people involved in the paper actually went on the march. Most people were excited about it. It was a big deal in its day. Like I say, it was this very strange thing that you could have thousands of people marching through the middle of the city and not hear a word about it on the media. So it was this kind of strange underground phenomenon even then. That national march got a fair amount of attention, and so that was kind of new and novel, that people would actually notice that there were gay people in large numbers at an event. The people who were activists were excited by it. Much of the community was not political, and I'm sure that's always been the case. And this is a very parochial town. In fact, we had a column of news clippings from around the country and the world, and we called it Beyond the Beltway, because the notion was that everybody in Baltimore was only concerned with what was inside the Beltway. So a march in Washington might as well have been in London, as far as many people here were concerned.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it became a major focus, obviously, as people were getting sick. I didn't know this, but I think at the 10-year anniversary of the paper, of the AIDS epidemic, I should say, not the paper, Mike went through all the content to find out how the paper covered it, and he found out that the first mention of the AIDS issue was in my Beltway column. And of course, we didn't have a name for it, but I remember writing a story and editing a story and putting it in the Beltway that said that there was a report of gay men having their cancer, gay cancer, in I think it was in San Francisco and Los Angeles. And I remember thinking, oh God, now they're going to claim that we have our own cancer too. So that was apparently the beginning mention of it. But as the epidemic developed, it became a major focus of